What is this? What is that? What is that?
The Breakfast Club wasn't just teenagers in detention. It was packed with fights, substances, and a bunch of degenerates that changed a generation.
I suppose you won't be needing a drink. Naked Lady says.
These are 15 weird facts about the Breakfast Club you didn't know. And as a bonus, I'll share exactly which Chicago high school was really used for filming. So, sit back and let's rewind time. Number 1. Let's face it, Nicolas Cage is one of the biggest A-list stars in Hollywood, whereas most of the Breakfast Club cast is largely forgotten. But when John Hughes selected his cast for the show, many Hollywood A-listers auditioned, actors like Jodie Foster, John Cusack, and Robin Wright. Yet, Nicolas Cage also auditioned for the role of Bender, but Hughes didn't like his audition, rejecting him for Emilio Estevez. But even he was given a different role when Hughes saw how good Judd Nelson was. And you won't believe the real bully Nelson actually was. Number 2. When Judd Nelson was cast as Bender, no one knew that he would become his actual character in real life. Nelson was often rude to cast members, specifically Molly Ringwald, to keep their on-screen tension as authentic as possible. He even sneered at John Hughes. But when Molly's mother visited the set, his bullying almost got him fired. He continued berating her, so much that she approached the studio and complained about his bullying. Hughes was ready to fire him. Then the cast stepped in to defend him, applauding his commitment to the character. So, Nelson was given a second chance, creating a raw, edgy character that went off script so much, you'd probably wonder why it was ever written. But speaking of the script, you'd never guess how long it took to write. Number 3. It takes years, even decades, for scripts to be written. But for John Hughes, writing this particular script took just 48 hours. Even though it might sound like an over-exaggeration, Hughes revealed that he locked himself inside a hotel room for an entire weekend, using just pure inspiration and a dream that he wanted to achieve. What's even more impressive is that this first draft was barely altered, and the production could begin almost immediately. I guess speed was a theme once you know how long it took to film. Number 4. Once the script was ready and the cast was selected, filming began. However, it wasn't your typical filming, but something you'd never see in modern Hollywood. The cast set up on March 28, 1984, and filming was wrapped up in early May, taking just a little more than 30 days to finish. Hughes was so impressed with the cast that retakes were rare, and within less than a year of filming, it was ready to release. But what about the raw emotions of the most iconic scene? Number 5.
Don't you ever talk about my friends. You don't know any of my friends, you don't look at any of my friends, and you certainly wouldn't condescend to speak to any of my friends.
When the group finally reaches the climax of the film, where they reveal the reason each of them is in detention, it seems a little too realistic. From the facial expressions to the emotions, nothing feels out of place. It was later revealed in 2016 by director of photography Tom Del Ruth that most of it was improvised. In fact, John Hughes was fully open to suggestions from the actors, and after watching them blast each other with pure emotion on the first take, he rewrote it on the spot. The buildup of tension was so real that the scene felt like real students, ultimately becoming the most iconic moment of the film. But even then, there were a few Easter eggs that were missed. Number 6. For the large part of the film, the actors were bored. In fact, they are in detention, punished for what they had done. But with the teacher never around, they found innovative ways of entertaining themselves, from crawling through the roof to smoking drugs. Yet, the most useful tool they could have used was barely even mentioned. Even back in 1984, computers were already in student libraries, but throughout the film, they were never touched, leaving a nice little Easter egg often missed by fans. Number 7. Molly Ringwald was only 16 years old when she played the character of Claire. However, the film references many taboo topics, including sex, drugs, and the use of alcohol, which was considered rebellious back in 1984, especially for high school teenagers. However, she later wrote in The New Yorker, where she almost denounced the film for its inappropriate context. She said that watching the film with her 10-year-old daughter made her apprehensive, stating that it was troubling for her to watch, especially in the modern Me Too era. At least she wasn't a thief like Allison. Number 8. Let's face it, Allison was certainly the weird kid in class. She didn't speak a single word for the first 24 minutes of the film. But she wasn't just sitting there doing nothing. In fact, she kept on stealing things from the other cast members, and even the school. Many of these instances went largely unnoticed. Well, until she stole Brian's wallet. It all culminated with the infamous purse dump scene with everything she had stolen. But even then, her sticky fingers couldn't stop. After her kiss with Andrew at the end of the film, she snatched his patch off his jacket. A true kleptomaniac in every sense of the word. Number 9. As weird as Allison was, she had a vivid imagination that made up for the lack of actual speaking. After filming, it was revealed that one of the best scenes was cut, where Allison dreamt about an alternate reality for the other cast members. She imagines Andrew as a gluttonous Viking, Bender as a prisoner, Claire as a bride, Brian as an astronaut, and herself as a vampire, which, if you think about it, kind of makes sense in terms of how the characters had developed. Well, Bender was probably just a prisoner in his own hatred and mind. Number 10. Now, Andrew is the wrestler of the group, and perhaps even the only normal person attending detention. However, early in the film, the director added another nice little Easter egg, suggesting that Andrew might have been on his way to Ohio State University. His dad's car had a personalized license plate, which reads Ohio ST. This was perhaps a reference that Andrew was heading there for his wrestling career. But who exactly was Brian's dad? Number 11. John Hughes wasn't an actor himself, and when it came to casting someone for the role, he didn't know who to choose. Yet, the legendary director wasn't really someone for the silver screen, having only made cameos in Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Class Reunion. However, he'd cast himself at the end of the film, being seen as the man who picks up Brian. Even though no one really noticed this, it just shows the attention to detail that was paid when creating the iconic film. So, where was it all filmed? Number 12.
Saturday, March 24th, 1984.
In the first scene, viewers can quickly see the name of the high school as Shermer High. Yet, this wasn't the real name of the school. When filming started, Hughes needed somewhere that felt a little abandoned, and finding a high school that wasn't being either renovated or used was almost impossible. His next best option would have been to create a set. So, he stumbled upon the abandoned Maine North High School in Des Plaines, Illinois, which just 4 years earlier was closed down by the school board. It was perfect, aside from the small library. So, the cast had to recreate the library in the gymnasium for enough room that allowed the camera to operate freely. However, it wasn't the only location used for filming. Most of the corridor scenes and external shots were filmed at Glenbrook North High School, where Hughes himself was an alumnus. But another cast member was Man of the Year at Shermer. Number 13. One of the most easily missed moments in the film is Carl the janitor. He plays a very minor role, mostly getting into some kind of conflict with the cast and being the one who runs to the vice principal. Yet, he makes an appearance in the first scene, but not in person. A plaque on the wall shows him as the Man of the Year in 1969, which actually creates a narrative for the story that no matter how good you are in school, it doesn't mean that you are guaranteed to succeed in life. His morbid tone clearly indicates how unhappy he is with his job. But what about the drugs they used? Were they real? Number 14. The use of real drugs was obviously banned back in the 1980s. And even today, you never see real drugs being used. But when the group smoked marijuana, the acting was so authentic that you'd be forgiven for thinking it was the real deal. The director turned to a real herb, oregano. Perhaps this could have had a similar effect that gave the film such an authentic feel and made the characters seem like they were really high. Number 15. In one scene, Vice Principal Vernon catches Bender playing basketball in the gymnasium. Yet, instead of wearing his iconic black boots, he was wearing a random white sneaker. In fact, no one knows where the sneaker comes from, or if the whole scene was just improvised by Judd Nelson himself. Following a talk down from Vernon, he walks out of the gym, puts on his iconic boots, and takes his jacket, leaving the white sneaker just randomly lying around. To this day, no one really knows the purpose of it, but if you do, let us all know in the comments below. But speaking of random mysteries, The Fifth Element had a director who almost cheated on his wife, who happened to be a co-star. Check out this video to find out why.